Hey, let's turn the store-bought bouquet into the Candelabra centerpiece. I did a promise a tutorial, so here it is, y'all. We got these flowers from Trader Joe's. It's a pre-made bouquet, and the greenery is just going to be some fresh eucalyptus for this arrangement. We're gonna use some wet floral foam. I used about half a brick, and you can get that from like Michael's, Craft Store, Amazon. If you're using real flowers, use the wet stuff. If you're using full florals, you'll want to use dry foam. And in a previous video, I did show you how to properly soak your wet foam. Of course, I'm using gloves on my hands when handling this foam. And then we're using the acrylic candelabra that I got from Amazon as my base, keeping these rods in place to help use them as like guides for me. You don't have to do that. I like to do it because it does help. All right, so now we are going to here, if you are transporting this, you'll want to secure your foam with some clear floral tape. And especially if you're doing this for the first time, it also helps keep your foam in place. It will slide if it's not secure. So I'm skipping that step because I'm just kind of familiar, but otherwise we are set and ready to rock and roll. One other thing is I like to try and keep track of where the holes are because you have to go back and screw the rest of the rods in later on. So I do pay attention to where my holes are when I start arranging. You'll want to clip your greenery into different sizes. You also don't have to use one type of greenery. Sometimes I do like to mix it up. I think in my last one I did use different types of greenery. But what's important is that you have enough of it to help create a base and that you are cutting it in different lengths. That is going to be to your benefit as you start adding it to your floral foam. So you'll see, we'll get into the clipping here. Clip away. If you have any extras, you will want to hold on to the extras. Those will come in handy in the end, and I'll tell you what a little bit later. But yeah, we're gonna clip these different sizes, and then we are ready to move on and start adding them to our floral foam. One important note is that when you are inserting your stems into the foam, you'll want to do so at an angle instead of like straight up and down or just straight out of the side. It is to your benefit to put it in at an angle. Visually, it looks better, and it also just kind of feels better as you're moving along. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second here. But yeah, we're just going to continue to grab our greenery, fill this brick and make it nice and lush with the greenery. And once we've done that, we know that we'll be ready to kind of move on to our next step. It's up to you how full you want it to be, but certainly the fullness, the more full it is, the more covered that green brick is, the better, and it gives you a nice canvas before you start adding your flowers in. Again, we are going to continue to add these stems in, and what I'm showing you here is that you will have to cut them to get to different lengths, which means you'll have to pull the leaves off sometimes, and then you'll have to take your scissors or your clippers or whatever and cut down the branch to the length that you want it to be, and then you just pop that bad boy right into the foam. So you will have to do that a couple times throughout, because sometimes the stems will just be too long and you don't want things to be too tall for a table centerpiece. So this is what it looks like once it's all filled in. I know it looks a little funky right now. You're like, girl, what are you doing? Where are you going? Trust the process. This is a good base to get started with before you start adding your flowers. So you'll just make sure it's nice and full all the way around. These are the extra stems that I had. We'll set those to the side just in case we have to fill in later on. So hold on to those. Now we're ready to move on to our flowers. Again, this is a store-bought bouquet. Usually I like to select my flowers on my own and come up with my own creations. But if you're a first timer, you're on a budget, you have time constraints, just grab a pre-made bouquet and it really should do the trick. You get a nice mix of flowers and you can either use them all or you won't need to use them all at all. And you'll know that once you start working them in. So much like the greenery, we're going to be cutting our stems down to different sizes. Typically when I do vase arrangements or when I do florals for somebody else, like more professionally, I'll use my floral knife to do the cutting, but for this I'm going to cheat and use these clippers or scissors kind of interchangeably to cut things down. As a housekeeping measure, I usually pull off like extra foliage. You really don't have to do that either for this particular type of arrangement, but it's just my preference to do that. And then again, some of like the skimpier, scrawnier stems on the flowers, I will pull those off and set those to the side, just in case I'd need to do some filling in. So I'm just gonna eyeball it and cut it to the length that I think I need. Again, you don't want them too tall or too long, especially if it's going to be a centerpiece on the table, because you want to be able to see faces, right, when you're sitting across from people at the dinner table. But if it's more of like a mantelpiece or something like that, then you can keep them a little bit longer, make them a little bit taller. So once those are all trimmed down, I'm going to, again, treat these the same way I did with the greenery and put my flowers in at an angle as opposed to straight up and down. And then we'll just continue that on with the rest of the stems. You have a variety of stems, so you'll want to work those all in. With the roses in this situation, they're a little scrawny, so we have to give them a little extra love. You'll see me kind of separating the petals a little bit. Usually in a day or two, sometimes roses will open up on their own beautifully if it's a good rose, if it's fresh, if it's quality. I don't know how much hope I have for these, but we will do what we can to make them look good and work for this arrangement. We'll just continue to work our way around. You'll want to make sure that it's pretty much balanced on all sides. Again, especially if you're going to be able to see it from all angles, just make sure you're working your flowers in all around. Eyeball your work as you go along, spin it around, feel it out. You'll want to do some QCing as you get closer to the end, and just again turn it around, look at it from all angles, make sure it feels okay. Usually if you skip this step, you'll later kind of notice like I might have missed something. Like in this instance, there's a hole there. So those extra flowers that you have, the extra greenery that you have, this is where it comes in handy, and you can just go ahead and fill in your holes, keeping with the balance. So you'll just work your way through, make sure it looks good, and then you're all set. This is what it looks like on the table. The clear cylinders are not around the candles just yet. You'll see in the next shot here, boom, there's the cylinders around the candles on the acrylic candelabra. And then this is what it looks like litty. Yep, this is all lit up. You are ready to party, to host your people. You can do this for any special occasion: dinner party, Christmas, Thanksgiving, graduations, baby showers, weddings, obviously. It's so easy. It's really simple, super elegant. For any occasion, and you can do it yourself. That's the best part. You can do it yourself. Also, you'll notice some pops of color like pink and purple, which came with the bouquet, but that's always a nice touch to break up some of those color palettes. Don't be afraid to add a little color. Don't be afraid to add a little flair. Have fun with it, and let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them for you. Happy arranging, y'all.